Okay, so in the previous exercise, basically we have selected some of the features that is important for our study here. So from the clinical data set. In this exercise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to integrate this information together with the genomic data set, which will be used for your analysis. So for this exercise, for the ease of this exercise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the microRNA data set, which is the smallest and the easiest to process. So I'm going to open this file here. Okay. Now, immediately when you open these files, you can see that on the top row here, basically, you have this TCGA barcode number which represent each of the patients. Now, you can see that, okay, the format are actually very similar to, okay, the clinical information that we have for the patient's barcode. In fact, well, in this exercise, we are going to match uh, this barcode from this data set and also the data set from the microRNA. Now, so to do that, I'm going to copy this row here and open up a new sheet, and I'm going to transpose it now. And what you can see here is that you have this annotation TCGA dash with alphabet and then dash and then followed by at the end is dash by a number. Now the n number here, okay, 0, 1 actually represent primary tumors, and you have other different sample type as well, which I will come to that later on. For example, okay, if it's a dash 11, the last number here, the 11, actually refer to normal solid tissue. So I will come to that later on. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to basically um, convert this barcode that is compatible to be recognized as this barcode. You see this barcode here, there's only uh, 3 sections, whereas the barcode from the from the genomic or the microRNA data set, you have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I need to remove the fourth section here in order to match it to the clinical barcode. So how am I going to do it? I'm going to basically convert this into using text to column. Okay, so let me just, well, I can actually select the whole bar here, I mean all the information here. Then I'm going to use text to column. So delimited, go to next. Then here basically you need to click on others and then you put the dash here. What it does is basically every time when this column there is a dash, then it will actually separate it into a separate column. So okay, so if I click finish, then you will get that, okay, each of this section is now separated into a different, what we call it, a different column. So I'm going to put a filter here now. So the last part here, as I mentioned it before, so if it is 1, then basically this is a primary tumor. So I will put it there. So, oh, okay, what I'm going to do is I think going to create one more column here. So, okay, so I'm going to select all the one ended with 1. So these are all primary tumors. Okay, you copy and paste it all the way down. And then, okay, 6. 6 is actually metastatic tumors. Okay, metastatic. All right. And then 11 is actually referred to normal tissue. Okay, in this case, normal pancreatic tissues. So now you have your type here. Okay, so now what I need to do now is basically I'm going to, okay, combine this column, okay, this 3 column and recreate back the barcode that will match the clinical data. So in order to do that, okay, the simplest way to do it is you can use the equation concatenate. Okay, so you will then select the first text here, followed by a comma, and then after that you put a dash in between, and then the second column, okay, and then comma, and then you put a dash in between, and then that, and then uh, followed by the last column. So now you see that you can reconstruct it back the TCGA barcode by basically eliminating the last section of the barcode. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it throughout the whole column here. Okay, so now that I'm going to, okay, copy and paste it as text so that, well, when I change any of the formula, so it won't change. Now, okay, so next thing is that I'm going to match it with this data here. I'm going to rearrange this column a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to put the drug treatment here first, and then I'm going to put the response here, and then I'm going to move the well, the patient's day to death, and then followed by the death reason. So this is the two data that is important for the study. These two is optional, but I think it would be good to have it as well. So anyway, so we will save this clinical data set. Now, the next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to uh, integrate all this information into the microRNA data set that I have. So I'm going to copy all this, uh, the title, okay. Now, so to mesh, okay, the data, to integrate the data, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this formula, which is very useful. You can actually look it up. It's called a VLOOKUP. So now, so when you put VLOOKUP, then you select the value that you want to match. Okay, so this is the value that you want to base on, and then you want to match it to this table data set, and automatically the first column would be recognized as the denominator. Basically, it will match the value uh, with this one with the entry from the first column. So, oops, sorry, let me try that again. Sorry. Okay, so we look up, you select the value, and then you comma, and then now table array. Oh, so the table array would be this whole table array, and then after that followed by the column index number. Now, what number, which column of the information do you want to retrieve? So this is column 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So in this case here, for patient drug, I want to retrieve column number 2, and then followed by, okay, here you have two options here. True will be the approximate match, and false will be the exact match. So in this case here, we will use the exact match. So, and here you go. So now you can see that, okay, now you can integrate, okay, this, the patients from this, what you call it, this patient actually received gemcitabine. Okay, just to cross-check, you can actually go back to the clinical data set, and then you can search for this patient's ID, see whether it is true. You can see that, yes, he or she did receive gemcitabine and so forth. Okay, so now what you need to do now is basically you can copy and paste the formula into different columns. Now make sure that you change the value here, okay, and then the column now you want to retrieve is column number 3, okay, okay, and then you can have column number 4, and then um, and column number 5. So then you can then copy all this information, and then you can scroll it down here all the way to the end of the list, and then you can paste it. Now you have all the information that is matching the patient's data set from the microRNA. It's not done yet. What I'm going to do now, next, I'm going to overlap this into this big table so that you can actually filter out some of the information if you need to do it later on. So I'm going to save this for the time being. So, and then again, I'm going to copy and paste it as text. Okay, so now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create four more row here, basically, which I'm going to integrate here. So now you can see that. So now I'm going to copy all this information, and then I'm going to uh, transpose them. So now you have the patient's number with all the microRNA expression, and you also have the gemcitabine treatment and response on this data set as well. So, but of course, as you can see, is that well, some of the treatment are not of our interest. For example, these patients receive 5-FU, and this is not part of the study. So, we actually do need to include this column here. So next, what I'm going to do now is basically I'm going to clean up the data set, okay, by removing those information which is not um, relevant to this study, okay, so that, well, we will only focus on the gemcitabine study. Okay, so to do that, you can use the sort button here. Okay, now, so, okay, oops, sorry. So, convent, no, let me select the whole thing. Then you can sort it. Now, conventionally, when it's sort, you only sort based on the column, but actually there's options here. Okay, so first of all, I need to uncheck this one here first. Okay, so there's an option here. You can actually sort it from left to right. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to sort it from left to right and sort by row number 2, the drug names. Okay, so when you do that, so everything will be sorted. So you can see that here. Now, of course, okay, your gene is your microRNA is also be sorted as well. So now it is basically towards the the FY column here. So I'm going to undo this, and I'm going to just select okay uh, the information from here, and then to do the sorting. Okay, so that I wouldn't mess around with the column A here. So column number 2, and then I'm going to sort it. So okay, so now here you go. So all these 5-FU, okay, capecitabine and all this is not related to gemcitabine. I'm just going to delete this. Okay, then of course you have gemcitabine. These are all the cases treated with gemcitabine. Gemsa will be included as part of it as well. So now, urinol taken, there's no need. Na, there's no need. Okay, so this is what we can remove it. So basically now you have the whole cohort. This is the cohort of the data that for patients that have received gemcitabine. Now the next thing is that I also need the clinical response data as well. Those that without information is not going to be useful, and I'm going to filter that out again. So now again, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the sort button again. So in this case here, I'm going to sort it based on response, which is row 3. So now you can see that, so you have clinical progress, so that is response here, which is good. So I'm going to delete those that have no response data. Okay, so now that's good. So now before I end this, I'm going to create another row here, basically to summarize the response. So into a responder and also non-responder. So in this study, as I mentioned it before, okay, if clinical progressive, I will call it a non-responder. Okay, so then you have all this clinical progressive. This is okay. So, and then for this is complete response, then I will call it responder. So partial response, I will include it as responder as well, whereas the stable disease, then I would call it as a non-responder. Okay, so you can save this. So now you have a full data set that you can work on. You can do statistical tests here, t-test, and the mean fold change if you want to further filter it before you put it into the glucomic to develop your models. Or alternatively, you can put the whole data set in, and then well, you can also test, see whether uh, it worked out as well. So the good things about doing the filtering for the using the statistic first is that so that your data set will be much cleaner. Well, you can almost see that okay, you get a lot of zero rate here in the whole data set, and when you do the statistical test, all these genes that have a lot of the zero rate will probably or potentially be removed as well, so that it will make your analysis much more cleaner. But there's two options that you can actually test, so we do not know which one will give you a better result, so that's up to you to explore. That's it for now. Thank you.